Why should you use SNMP version 3? Because SNMP version 3 is going to give you authentication at a higher level than SNMP version 1 or version 2. Because now instead of just sending clear text, community strings, or usernames, we can send hashed messages across for authentication purposes. We have the ability to maintain the integrity of the data while it's in transit. We have the ability to implement privacy by setting up the encrypted tunnel between the network management station and the end station. In today's day of age with hacking and network attacks, we want to protect that management traffic that's going back and forth between devices. Because if I was a hacker, what would I want to do? Well, I would want to spend time analyzing your network. So I'm going to find the holes in your network. And one of your holes might be with your management traffic flow. And if I can get into that, I can now capture information. So I'm not going to use SNMP necessarily for my attack. No, I'm going to use it to gather information about your devices. So that way there I can find deeper vulnerabilities in your devices. I can take advantage of that. And then eventually perform maybe denial of service attacks or hack in and change different features and services that are running on them and wreak havoc on your network. So by protecting the management traffic that's going back and forth between the devices using encrypted tunnels and higher levels of authentication, we have the ability to make sure that we are protecting our network at a deeper level. So when we're setting up SNMP version 3, we want to make it as secure as possible. So we're going to configure access control lists to identify which network management stations are allowed to access the MIB on our router. We're going to set up views as well. Views give us the ability to control which objects in the MIB the particular NMS is allowed to view. So we're not giving them access to everything. We're giving them access to specific values in the MIB through the view. Setting up a group. The group is going to allow us to identify which users, and the users are going to define the authentication and encryption that's being utilized, are going to be allowed to access the view. So this is the group is really creating a table of which devices, network management stations, based on successful authentication, are going to be allowed to access those values within the MIB, within that view. And so that user is going to have to be defined with the correct authentication parameters, with the correct encryption parameters, in order to provide the protection that we need. We'll also want to make sure that certain events are going to trigger a trap or an inform to be sent to the management station, so that way they were not always waiting on the polling process to get the information that we need. And then lastly, there are interface indexes on our devices. What does that mean? It means that our devices have an index associated with them. However, that index is not persistent. What do I mean by that? Well, if you add another module or card to the device with interfaces on it, it's possible that the indexes associated with your current interfaces is going to be changed. Or if the router reboots, the index could be different upon that reboot. So what we want to do is make sure that the index doesn't change. Because if we're gathering statistics about a certain interface and it's being represented as an index number, if that changes, then it's going to be really difficult for us to keep track of that over time. So we want to make sure that we implement a feature that is part of SNMP to make sure that the indexes do not change on the interfaces.